Um, Thank you, Jesse. Jesse is recording this meeting, so this will be available to everybody after this. And I am going to go ahead and get started because, I'm sure we'll have people joining, realizing that it's already 11 o'clock. And I've already heard from some folks who told me they cannot be here today and will be watching the video later. And Jesse, I think you're going to be on here with me. If you're able to help me with any questions at the end of the webinar, that would be awesome.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. So with that being said, I am not going to stop and answer questions as we go because I want to make sure I get through everything that we have. But please do feel free to type the question into the chat, and then Jesse can help relay that when we get to the end. Okay, so let's do this. Welcome to the webinar reviewing the annual program review and accreditation process for our communities in New Mexico, Main Street. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Amy Barnhart. I am a revitalization specialist focused on preservation and nonprofit resource development with New Mexico, Main Street. And I am the one who is doing all of the accreditations this year. So if you haven't met me, you will meet me because we will be working together at some point. We will be meeting together at some point. I've been with the state MainStreet program since 2013. Prior to that, I was the executive director in Carlsbad for Carlsbad Main Street, where I am from. And this is a very busy and exciting time of year for us here on this end. So what does it mean to be a Main Street community? This comes directly from the National Main Street Center. So it means that you have been designated by your state coordinating program, that is us, New Mexico Main Street. You are implementing the Main Street approach to advance your economic development goals, and you are meeting or striving to meet the annual accreditation criteria. So that means you are either operating as an accredited program, or if you're an affiliate program, you are actively trying to advance yourself to become an accredited program. And, one of the, I would say, the benefits for New Mexico Main Street, beyond the fact that we are required by Main Street America to do this reaccreditation process every year, the benefits to you and to us is that we are able to learn about the accomplishments of your program. We are able to also identify what you might need help from us on in the next year, whether that's technical assistance or potentially capital outlay funding if you have some major infrastructure projects that you're hoping to pursue. It allows us to kind of see if you are moving forward, if you are advancing toward achieving your goals, and if you're using your economic transformation strategies to get there. And it kind of helps us determine, maybe there are some opportunities that you have not identified or some recommendations that we can make that will help you become a stronger, more effective organization. And then we also collect a lot of information from you, and then we're able to take that info, and when we want to highlight the successes of our communities, we're able to take that information and package it and share it with the state legislature, with the higher ups at the New Mexico Economic Development Department. So we now have that information about what you have achieved and accomplished, and then we're able to kind of help also spread the word about the good work that you're doing in your community as well. And the reason that this being an accredited program can be valuable, you might think, well, what do I really care if I'm an affiliate or an accredited? I'm just out here doing the work. Being an accredited program means that you are operating at the highest standard. So you are operating at a higher level. It also can help you think through opportunities for enhancing your organization. So when you go through and you do the self-assessment, which we'll be talking about, you might identify some areas in which, hey, we could do a little bit more as far as our volunteer recruitment. We could try to work a little bit harder to have a board that kind of reflects our community more so than it currently does. So it helps you kind of see those areas that you can address and enhance. It also demonstrates that your organization is accountable. So as a Main Street organization, you are receiving funding from your municipality. And this is a way to demonstrate that you are doing the things you're supposed to be doing as a Main Street program and demonstrate to them that they should continue to fund you for that reason. Additionally, it does make you eligible to apply for the Great American Main Street Award, which is an award that the Main Street America, our national coordinating program, which they offer every year to 3 communities. New Mexico has had 1 community win it so far, which is Silver City back in 2011. So we would love to see some more of our programs apply. And part of the accreditation process kind of helps you and us identify weak areas that you might want to address to help you achieve that designation. I also want to mention that as far as how being an affiliate versus an accredited program can negatively impact you resource-wise, New Mexico Main Street will only provide funding for construction to accredited programs. So we might be willing to fund construction documents if you're an affiliate program, but we want to make sure that you are operating at the highest level before we give you that money for construction, because we want to make sure that you are going to leverage that investment into your district infrastructure, and we want to know that you are prepared to do that. So in addition to myself, we also have our state program director, Daniel Gutierrez, and Lucas Pedraza, who is the New Mexico Main Street project coordinator. And it will be the 3 of us conducting and leading each of your accreditation meetings throughout our accreditation season. And you may or may not realize you are part of a network of 30 Main Street programs. So that keeps us pretty busy over the next few months, because we are collecting all this information, we are reviewing it, and then we are conducting these meetings and then preparing the reports on the back end. So there is a lot that goes into this process. And really, I've kind of identified 7 different areas that I want to highlight and that I think are important to this process. And we're going to be going over all of these today. So the first one being that you're updating and uploading your compliance documents to the digital dashboard that we provide to your organization, that you are sending out your partner survey and soliciting responses from your organizational partners, that you are completing and uploading both the Main Street America 6 Standards of Performance Self-Assessment, as well as the New Mexico Main Street Local Program Annual Performance Report. We then also expect you to participate in that annual program review and accreditation meeting, which we have moved to a virtual Zoom format, just 1 hour. And then we also ask that you participate in an in-person site visit. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's kind of been de-emphasized. Daniel and Lucas try to get out to each of our communities at least once over a 2-year period, and they sort of schedule that around maybe something major you have going on. If you have a big project you want them to come out and see, you have a ribbon cutting, whatever it is. They try to make it less of a, we have to get into this community and sit in this meeting for an hour and then go to the next one. They want to be more of an experience where they can get out and actually interact with community members and business owners and walk the district in a more casual setting. We also ask that you submit quarterly reinvestment statistic reports, which are submitted 4 times throughout the year. So they don't necessarily coincide with this process. So I think one to 2 of them might be submitted during this time frame. That's something that goes on all throughout the year that you have to be tracking and submitting. And then we also ask you to complete the annual budget and salary survey, which is typically completed in November. So our timeline for this year, oops, it says 2022, found a typo, forgot to change that one, oopsie. So for this year, last Friday, I emailed out on our board president and our executive director listservs all the information that you need for the accreditation process beyond this webinar. So you got a detailed document listing all the instructions for all 7 of these different areas that you need to complete and address. At the end of that document is a checklist, which I think I have a screenshot of on the next slide. Oh wait, they actually made it in there. So I can always jump out of here and show it to you guys if you haven't seen it yet. But I sent you, I think it's an 8-page document that has 7 pages of instructions and screenshots of what the documents look like. And the 8th page is a checklist that lists all the different things that you need to upload and address. And that's really more so for you to complete as a way of tracking your progress toward achieving accreditation. I also sent out in that same email a virtual meeting schedule, including the Zoom meeting link for that, as well as a SurveyMonkey link for your annual partner survey. Those are all in one PDF document, and you can just click on those links or copy and paste them to either email them to people or to access the survey or the meeting link. Also on that email was the MainStreet America 6 Standards of Performance Self-Assessment tool and worksheet. So the tool is the really long, lengthy document that has all the text related to the different standards, the focus areas, the indicators, and then the worksheet is where you record the ratings that you give yourselves after you read through all those indicators. And additionally, attached to that email was a local program annual performance report template, along with the instructions and example report that we also provide to you as well. So all of that went out on Friday. So if you did not see it, if you have not looked at that, I would highly recommend you do it immediately, because that has your scheduled meeting date on there. And so if there are any issues and you need to reschedule, the sooner you let me know, the easier that process can be for all of us. Today, we're doing the overview of the whole process webinar. And then starting in late September, the very last weekend of September through late November, we have all of our virtual annual accreditation meetings scheduled. So prior to your meeting, it is expected that you will have your compliance documents, your self-assessment, and your performance report submitted so that we have time to review them all. And that you will also have solicited partner survey responses. So our expectation is that we will have all that 1 week prior to allow us time to read through it all, because we do read through it all. And finally, the goal will be to get the accreditation reports out in the second half of the year, or the last quarter of the year, I guess we could say. Again, because I am the one completing those, it can be time consuming depending on what else we have going on. But every year working on ways to make it a faster process. So my hopes are that we will be able to make that happen this year. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the site visits that happen in person are kind of just an ongoing process that occurs throughout the year. So the very first thing you want to do is start looking at updating your annual compliance documents. So those are all listed here. They're also listed in the instructions that I emailed out to everybody. I have highlighted board roster, operating budget, and annual work plans because of these documents. Those are the highest priority to me that I receive before your accreditation meeting. If we're a week out from your meeting and you are still waiting on a board member to send you a conflict of interest disclosure, that is not the end of the world. We can work with that. For the conflict of interest disclosures, that's more of just a confirmation that you have those. But the board roster, operating budget, and annual work plan are things that we actually look through, we read through. The board roster allows us to know who we might be seeing in that meeting. The budget gives us a sense of, do you have enough funding for programs? Do you have enough funding for your operating budget? And then the work plan lets us see what you've been working on, what you're planning to work on, in addition to the other reports that you provide. I've also put in red here the Secretary of State registration and the Attorney General registration, because I have already gone through and looked up each and every one of your organizations on those websites and confirmed whether or not you are in compliance or out of compliance. Those of you that are out of compliance have received emails from me, and I think almost everybody has responded and is working on addressing those compliance issues. The rest of you, I've confirmed it. I've gone into each of your dashboards and I have checked off and said that you are in good standing through whatever the next date is. I do want to say that there are many of you who your reports are due by November 15th. So don't let me saying you're good now allow you to forget that you do need to get those taken care of before they're due in November. I also highlighted here or put in this orangey text the National MainStreet Center sub-licensing agreement. And that's because those that is a virtual document that you sign virtually. It goes back to National Main Street Center or Main Street America, and it also comes back to us. And sweet, kind Jessie, when she gets those, she uploads them to your dashboard and marks off that they are there. So if you don't know what I'm talking about and you don't remember ever getting this email, or you've already forgotten that you did get it and signed it, if you look in your dashboard, you will see it represented there if it was returned back to us. If you don't see it there, then you're going to want to let me or Jessie know, and we can kind of help work with you through that process. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the IRS Form 990 shortly. Your LOA or MOU with your local government, I think everybody got those done last year, and they last for 2 years, so you don't have to worry about those this year. Phew, one less thing to do. And then, of course, your local government contract is your service contract that you sign with your municipality that outlines what they pay you, what you're doing in response for those funds as well. It can be really helpful to me as the solo person doing all of this if you kind of try to upload those documents in chunks, and when you do feel like you've got a significant amount uploaded, if you just shoot me an email and let me know. You can also at that time just give me a status update on any documents that are missing or that you think you will not have by the meeting date, such as, like, say it's the conflict of interest disclosure or something like that. If you can just give me a status update, and that is really helpful for me as well, because then I won't go in there looking for it, and I won't have to send you an email reminding you because you already have let me know that it's on your radar. Additionally, if you can give your documents a clear name when you upload them, like I put SMS for my generic Shelbyville Main Street organization 2023 budget. That way I know, even though I'm still going to click on it and open it and look at it just to confirm, I can, at a glance, because I can see the name of your file in the dashboard, I immediately know, okay, this has been updated recently. I'll go in there, open it, check things out. And finally, I want you to know that typically my process is that I will go in and check your dashboard 2 weeks prior to your meeting. And at that time, I will send you a reminder and say, hey, I checked out your dashboard. I don't see anything updated, and you've got 1 week left to do that. So, can you kind of let me know what's going on? When can we expect these documents, et cetera, et cetera. And it's fine. Like, I'm just doing that 2 week check-in because I would rather send that reminder 2 weeks prior than reach out to you 1 week prior when everything was due and be like, hey, what's going on? Where is everything? So if you're on top of that, if you're already uploading stuff and letting me know the status, then I don't have to send that 2 week reminder. So just something to think about. So throughout, I'm going to kind of touch on some of the areas that where issues arise and how you can make my life easier in the process. So the first one I want to mention is the board roster. So every now and then we'll have a community upload the board roster that maybe was updated at the beginning of the year, but was not updated again prior to the accreditation process. And maybe they also decided to wait until the accreditation process to get those conflict of interest disclosures signed. And so they upload a board roster that is not current and a conflict of interest disclosures that is current. But for me, I have to match them up. So I have to look at your board roster and then look at those disclosures that have been uploaded, and I have to make them match. And if they don't match, then I'm going to have to send you an email, and I'm going to say, hey, you've got, everybody but so-and-so and so-and-so, can you let me know what the status is of those? And then you say, oh, our board roster changed. So it just creates additional work for all of us. So if you can make sure that your board roster is current before you upload it, that would be great. I would also say wait to upload those disclosure statements until you have them all, because they have to be uploaded as one document anyways. And you will just duplicate your work, and I will duplicate my work by going in there and checking and being like, having to confirm whether or not they're there. And then when I confirm that there's still one missing, it's that whole process again. So my suggestion would be you send me an email and you say, hey, I'm still working on these. They're not up yet. And then that way it saves us all a little bit of time. Bonus points if you upload the disclosure statements in the same order that your board roster is in, because then it's so much easier for me to check them against each other. It really, really helps me out. The IRS 990, sometimes I will go in there, you'll have everything up, and then the one thing outstanding is the IRS 990. So then I have to send you an email and I have to say, hey, what's the status of this? And then you let me know we requested an extension. And we can avoid that whole exchange if you just upload the extension filing. And then I will see it there and I will know that you are in compliance, and I know that you have to still file it, but it eliminates that additional interaction, additional emailing and conversation that we would have to have about it. And of course, when you finally do have the 990 complete, please do upload it to there, even if it's after the accreditation process. This shouldn't be a big issue this year, as I mentioned, because we did the MOUs last year, but just something to keep in mind. Again, it is a waste of your time if you upload an MOU that does not have all the signatures on it, because I'm just going to come back to you and say, hey, we need the signatures from the city. We need the signatures, from your organization. It's totally just one of those documents that's a compliance document that just has to be fully complete for it to be considered achieved. Same thing, there is the requirement that you have a council resolution of support as well. So you're going to want to upload all those things in one document, or if you have emailed it, back to New Mexico Main Street, frequently Jesse will help upload those in there as well. And for your work plan, sometimes, in the last few years, and many of you have never known this as any different, the National Main Street Center has required that all of our communities have economic transformation strategies. And we still get work plans turned in that do not list your strategies on there. And in reality, your whole work plan should be corresponding and relating back to those strategies. So if these are not existing even together in the same document, that kind of tells us that they maybe aren't really working together. And also, just for us to be able to review your documents, as I mentioned, we need to know what are the strategies. So make sure when you submit your work plan that you create space on there where you are telling us what your economic transformation strategies are and what your capacity building strategy is. If you could also help me out and include a space on your work plan where you put your mission and vision statement, then that really helps me out too, because frequently I have to go hunt those down, because we do include those in your report. Even though we're not requiring you to submit them, we kind of think it's a nice touch to include that in the report, because it kind of gives like an overall idea of what this organization is working towards. So if you would add those to your work plan, it would be incredibly helpful to me. And additionally, as I mentioned, Main Street America has an expectation that our communities are creating work plans that show how their projects align with those strategies. So having a work plan that reflects that and shows how your projects are helping advance those strategies is something to be working toward if it doesn't already. Additionally, when you start to look at that self-assessment document for Main Street America, you will see they are also asking that in your work plan, you're identifying your outcomes, the tasks you need to complete the project, who's responsible for it, timelines, budgets, etc. So again, something to be striving toward if your work plan doesn't reflect that already. And I would assume that I think at this point, most everybody has all of these documents uploaded to their dashboard. These are really the one-time compliance documents that only need to be updated if something changes. So if you amend your bylaws, you would upload those amended bylaws. If you change one of these policies, you would upload the new policy to replace it. I think there might be one or two communities that have an outstanding policy that they have not yet passed and uploaded, but for the most part, you should not have to be worrying about any of these documents. And if you are not super familiar with the dashboard, that's where all these documents go. These are the 4 sections here on the left-hand side. You can click on the title of any one of these sections, it'll open up, and then you will see, it'll drop down, and you can see all this information here on the bottom right of the screen. So bottom right, you can see those live links. Those are the files that you have uploaded. In the center there are the comments that I have made when I go in there. So when I go in there and reset your dashboards, which has not been completely done yet, I will put a comment in there and identify, you know, does it need to be updated? Has it been updated? And then if you let me know you've updated documents, if you've uploaded them, I will go in there and I will check them off and I will update my comments to reflect that as well. So there are red, yellow, and green lights for each of those top 2 sections. So that kind of gives you a sense of where you're at, what you still need to get done. And then the MainStreet America accreditation is either green or red because there's not really any middle ground there. And again, compliance documents 1 week prior to the meeting. Again, you cannot edit those comments. Only I or somebody from New Mexico Main Street can edit those comments. It's just based on the permissions that we have as administrators versus the users. So partner survey responses, as I said, I emailed out that link last week. I would say get that out ASAP to your partners. That could be people you work with at the city. That could be counselors, commissioners, the Parks Department director, the city manager. You know, it can be, there's an innumerable number of people that you could send this to. Partner organizations, maybe your local beautification entity, the EDC, the chamber, district business owners, property owners, maybe some volunteers that are not on your board, but do volunteer with your organization. The one group that should absolutely not respond to this survey are your board members, because the self-assessment is the space where they can provide their feedback on your organization and how you're doing. When board members respond to this survey, as well as partners, it gets really confusing and it totally skews the responses. So you could have partners that come in and give you, you know, just let's say somewhat effective across the board. And then you have 5 board members who complete it and they all say very effective. And now the results are just all over the place and we have no idea, you know, what's real, what's not. And then some of the feedback as well, sometimes it's hard to tell if they're directing comments toward the organization or if they're actually being directed toward us, because if it's a board member responding, they might be sharing comments that they're actually trying to communicate something to us, New Mexico Main Street, versus to the local organization. So whatever you do not have board members respond to this. I don't care if they're a business owner. I don't care if they work at the city. If they're a board member, they should not respond. So again, my suggestion is you send it out ASAP if you haven't already, and then about 2 to 3 weeks prior to your meeting, send it out again, and then maybe 2 weeks to like 10 days before the meeting, send it out a 3rd time. If you're like, hey, I don't want to like bombard people with this, you know, you can check with me and I can look up and tell you how many responses you've received. And if you've only had 3 responses, then I would say, hey, yeah, try to get it out a few more times, add a few more email addresses, some new people on there, see if you can get some more responses. If you have over 8, then I would just leave it up to you to decide whether or not you want to send it out again. And of course, we have our MainStreet America 6 Standards of Performance Self-Assessment. This is a very, very important document to be completed. This is part of the new evaluation framework that MainStreet America has developed. And it was really sort of introduced last year. This year is kind of continuing to be in process. Next year, there is an expectation that you are going to need to be fully meeting these standards to be accredited. So if there's some areas that are a little fuzzy on, you know, this is a good year to start thinking about how you can correct those for the next year. As I mentioned, there's 2 documents. There's the tool, which kind of walks you through, and I have an example of that I think on the next slide, which walks you through all the different indicators within the standards. And the second document is the worksheet. That is the one you complete and you upload to your dashboard and provide to us. It's a two or 3 page document. So we do not want the big, huge document. We just want the small document uploaded. So this is an example of the baseline requirements that are part of that self-assessment. MainStreet America's expectation is that if you are not meeting each of these baseline requirements, then you do not qualify to be an accredited program. So whereas all the indicators within the standards are ones where you can rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, these are yes, no questions. And really, for the most part, I would think that everybody should be able to say yes to these. Whether or not you're fully meeting all the accreditation standards, you should be able to say yes to these. The one that you might not be able to say yes to is reporting your reinvestment statistics to the coordinating program. Because I know that we still have programs who are not fully doing that. And so that can be a ding against you if you are not reporting those reinvestment statistics. Those are part of being an accredited program. Another area that you might say, well, I don't know that we're fully meeting this, is the very first one, where it says a board of directors formed by a representative base of the district and community members. So I know sometimes if we kind of are feeling like, hey, we could be doing some work on, maybe doing some new board recruitment that is ensuring that we are fully representing the district and the community. Maybe you're heavy on business owners and you don't have anybody else, or you only have community members at large and you don't have any business owners. I think I would say don't judge yourself too harshly here. If you have a functioning board of directors and you are meeting your bylaws as far as how many board of directors you have, I'm going to say yes here. But when we get to the standards, there are some questions where you might say, like, hey, this is an area we can work on. We need to work on making sure our board is more representative. But don't judge yourself so harshly here and basically set yourself up to not be accredited. I mean, if we look at this and you've kind of raised yourself in a way that makes you an affiliate when we think you should be accredited, we're going to come back and talk to you about it. We're going to tell you, hey, we think you are meeting this. You're just maybe being a little hard on yourself when it comes to this requirement. So here's a few examples of what you might see when you get into that document. So there are 6 standards. This is the first one here, broad-based community commitment to revitalization. Within those standards are focus areas. And then so these are the 3 focus areas here that are bolded: partnerships and collaborations, district and community outreach, and communications and public relations. And then within each of those areas are these indicators that you have to go through and respond to. So as I said, these will all be entered into the worksheet. And when you do that, please, I got ahead of myself there. I'll come back to that. So when you're looking at these indicators, they provide you with examples. And you can see I've got a red circle there around examples. So if you read A, B, and C under that indicator and you say, we're not exactly doing any of those, but we are doing this thing, and this thing, those count. They're giving you examples of what you might be doing, but don't make those the end all be all, because these are not exhaustive examples. They do not include every single thing under the sun that might qualify your organization to demonstrate that you are reaching this indicator. Additionally, you will see we went through those baseline requirements that are expected, but additionally, as you go through the standards, you will see some of these that are in gray and they say in the red, meeting this indicator is a requirement to achieve accreditation. So that means you need to get a 3 or above on one of these indicators. So keep that in mind as you're going through. And you can see here across the bottom of the page, these are the 5 different levels. So that's how you should consider how well you are meeting each indicator. A 3 or above, averaging a 3 on that standard means you meet that standard and that you will achieve accreditation. So again, we want you to be honest because we want to find ways to help you. And we don't want to just say, oh yeah, all of our programs are functioning at the level of 5. They are perfect, they're amazing. if you need some help and if there's opportunities to assist. But at the same time, we don't want you to overdo it and be so hard on yourself that that you position yourself to be an affiliate when you really should be an accredited program. So here is the worksheet that you are expected to complete and then upload. And you can see on the top left, those are those baseline requirements where you should select yes or no. You guys are LP, that stands for local program. We are coordinating program, and MainStreet America is MSA. So you are LP, we are CP. And then if MainStreet America ever actually does decide to look at this, they will check things off under the MSA column. Then the bottom left, that's the final page of the document. Yeah, actually this is more than 3 pages because I think it's like 5 pages. That's on the final page. That's where it calculates your totals for each of your indicators. And then here, top right, this is where you'll enter, 3, 4, 5, 2, whatever it is in the LP column. Additionally, this was included in the instruction email that went out last year, but I would say only about half the programs actually read those instructions and did what we asked for, which was that you provide justifications in these note boxes to let us know how you are meeting these standards. So if you give yourself a 5 on your volunteer supporting program, and then you do not ever talk about volunteers in that performance report, we're like, well, how? How are you meeting this standard so well, but you have not provided any examples at all in here that relate back to that? So this is a place where you can provide justifications. And I believe I have an example, just a little screenshot you can see on one of these upcoming slides. And then at the bottom, we need you to put your program name, who completed this. So reviewer, obviously our hope is that you're doing this as a whole organization, but whoever is signing off on it, I guess, let's say board president would be great to say that's who the reviewer was, their title and the date. And then that's all the things you have to do for this document before you upload it. So here's an example. Ratone kindly let me use this example here so you could see it. Where they went through and they provided some justifications, some examples of how they believe that they are meeting these indicators. And this is what we need. We need this from everybody. If you don't give us this, it makes it really hard because we also have to rate you guys during this process. So we have to have those justifications. And it's kind of cut off here in this screenshot, but there's a little plus sign right down here in the bottom right. And this note section actually expands. You can type and type and type and type as long as you want in that box. So a few things I want you to think about before you complete this document. Please do not complete it by hand. If you complete it by hand, then I have to go back and re-enter all that information myself because ultimately it has to be an editable PDF. So you need to complete it in the PDF that you receive. Please put your ratings in the LP column, the local program column, because if you put them in our column, then again, I have to go back in and change it all out, move all the information around. If you don't, if you need to make sure, well, okay, so I guess I'm saying here's the problem. So you didn't provide justifications, especially if you gave yourself ratings of 4 or 5, and then you didn't provide you didn't direct us to any of the information in your performance report, then that's going to be a problem for us. That's going to make things challenging for us to actually justify why you're rating yourself so highly and for us to rate your organization as well. And finally, the last thing is that staff complete this self-assessment with no board input. Now, I realize that sometimes that's just going to be how it is. But in an ideal world, this would be something that you would send out to the board. Every board member could do their own self-assessment, send it back to staff, have staff average, right there in front of me, what's the word? Have staff average the ratings. And then you could always, during a board meeting, spend some time saying, hey, here's what the average ended up being. Do we feel like this is accurate? Do we or need to or should we make any adjustments to this up or down before we submit it? I know sometimes it's been just staff who've done it. I know sometimes it's been staff and just one, the board president or one board member, and we are not gonna not accredit you if it's just staff who does it or if it's just one board member who participates, but you are missing out on the benefit of everybody reading through this and getting a sense of what Main Street America says a high performing Main Street program is and should be doing. So you hurt yourself, you hurt your own organization by not ensuring that as many board members participate in this process as possible. And finally, my screen here, I can't read what this last thing is here at the bottom. Oh, if you do not provide those ratings, then those justifications in the notes box, then it makes it really hard for us to rate your organization. If we can't rate your organization, we can't accredit you. So it is so important that you provide that info to us. And I did want to let you know, Main Street America did create some videos that you can access on the website. You can type in this web address right here. It will require you to log in. So if you don't know how to log into the national website, then I think Jessie is able to help you with that. So I would reach out to her. Not gonna lie, you're gonna want to drink a lot of coffee before you watch that first video. But I did think that the ones that were focused on the standards individually actually had some really good examples in there of ways in which you might be meeting the standards or recommendations. So they're worth checking out for sure, but some were more exciting than others, let's say. So on to the local program annual performance report. So this is where you tell us about the projects you've completed over the last 12 months and demonstrate progress and achievement. So this is where we get to really see you shine and really learn about what you've done. And these are organized by projects. Also, we mentioned providing those justifications for your ratings. We do provide an area up here at the second line that says standard of performance, where you can indicate, which standards this project is supporting. You're going to have some projects that don't really seem to line up with any of the standards. And I think that's because the standards they create are really, I think, more just, they tend to be a little more org focused and making sure you're meeting kind of the spirit of the Main Street program. They're not necessarily saying like, are you providing support to businesses? So you might have some projects that you're like, I don't really see what standard this supports, and that's okay. That's fine. Still, please include them. Still, please tell us about them. But if it's a project that does support a standard, please do indicate in there which one it supports. Here is an example here, just so you can see. So I said my project here focused on marketing vacant properties, help support standard 4, standard 5, and standard 6. Standard 4 is one of the priority areas in the standard 4 is that you are kind of using real world data about your district to make decisions about projects you undertake. So I said that this project does relate back to supporting the standard because we went out and we did an inventory of all of our properties in the district. So we developed this project based on the number of vacancies that we identified. We had actual data that supported this. And then you can see up here too, number 4 is the short title of strategy-driven programming. So your strategy should be based on data. And so this is showing, hey, we made this decision to do this project because of the data we had, and it supports our strategies. Standard 5 relates to preservation-based economic development. And through this project, we are helping encourage that because we generate a new interest in historic buildings in the district. We enticed people to want to hopefully open businesses in these historic buildings, giving them new life, ensuring that they're maintained, they continue to live and exist in our district. And finally, standard 6 relates to demonstrated impact and results. So you are actually tracking your impact. You are able to demonstrate results. You're able to get out there and tell people about what you're doing. And within this project, we were able to show, like, yes, we tracked how many vacancies we were able to reduce, how many buildings we filled, how many new businesses opened, what sort of impact this project had. So that's how I can justify that this project is helping support these 3 different standards. Also in this report, at the end, you will find a place where you can list any projects that you think you might want our help with in the next year. So these would be your priority areas, specific things you already kind of know. These are on deck. We're going to want New Mexico Main Street help. So you can put all of that here. And then in the bottom, you can put any weaknesses you want to address that you identified through the self-assessment process. So maybe when you went through standard 1, you noticed, like, we don't really have a brand for the district. That's something we want to work on next year, and we want New Mexico Main Street help with. This does not have to be every single weakness that you identified, because I don't think that you can address every single weakness you might have in 1 year. So these should be the things that really rise to the top to you, that you really feel like, hey, we can work on this, we can enhance and improve this in this upcoming year. So some of the biggest issues that come up with this report are that people provide too little detail, or they provide too much detail, or there is just so much detail and it is all jumbled together, and that project table is like 3 pages long, and that can be really problematic for those of us who are actually having to read through this and understand what you've done. So too little detail. Did you include all the relevant info about the project? If you put on a parade, please do not just say, we put on a parade and thousands of people attended. That tells me nothing. That does not give me any sense of what you had to do in that process. Did you have to work with your city partners to secure permits, map out the parade route, close down streets? That is communicating that you are working with your government partners, which is something that the standards ask us about. But if you're not giving me any of those details, then I'm just kind of like, I don't know, what did they actually do for this parade? Did they just market it? Did they actually help plan it? If you did market it to locals and out-of-town visitors, tell us how you did that. Don't just tell us you put on a parade, 1 sentence, you're done. That is not enough information. Please don't jumble too much information up together in one table. Separate those activities out. If you just label something business support and then you list a whole bunch of things you did and nothing is really standing out, it's just like, oh, I visited a business and I emailed this and da-da-da. As the person reading it, it's hard to read it. It's hard to retain the information because it is just all over the place and it's so much loaded up in one table. And then it's also really hard. Historically, we have always kind of pulled information out of your reports and summarized it within your report, and it makes it impossible to do that. It adds on, I'm not kidding, like an hour or more to preparing your report. So essentially, you're kind of delaying getting this report back to you because it is just so hard to go through that and kind of really pick out what exactly happened, what exactly you did. So please keep that in mind when you're going through and doing these. Additionally, we are still seeing a lack of understanding around what the difference between outputs and outcomes are. This little handy dandy table is in those instructions for this report. I mean, to me, I think you look at it, it's pretty clear. The outputs, the things that go into that output section are the activities you engaged in. The outcomes are what happened because of those activities you engaged in. So the example I have here is, okay, we started a business accelerator. Some of the things we did, some of the activities we did in support of that project are, we marketed it to businesses via social media and the newspaper. We recruited entrepreneurs and business owners. We provided trainings and consults to the participants. We ultimately graduated for the 5 participants. Okay, those are all activities. Those are all actions that we engaged in. What happened after we did those actions or activities? Well, we had 2 of the 4 graduates open businesses in the MainStreet district, which helped reduce our vacancy rate. We had 1 graduate expand their current business offerings, which allowed them to increase their sales by 25%. So these are not being actions or activities that you directly engaged in. These are the things that resulted from it. And these are real things that resulted from it. Sometimes you might have longer term outcomes that you can't identify right now, and that's okay. But give us some realistic, real short-term or medium-term outcomes that have resulted from the projects you have engaged in. And they don't have to be like, so often people say, more foot traffic downtown, or more people know about the downtown. And it's like, I know that you didn't measure it and that you don't have any way of measuring it when you just say it like that. So are there some actual concrete things that you can include that happened? You know, maybe there are some specific examples of things that resulted from this activity or project that you did. So when you're completing these 2 documents, the self-assessment and the performance report, we think it's easiest if you start with the self-assessment and you work your way through that and you kind of make a note of the projects and activities that you believe are demonstrating support for those indicators. That way, when you go to complete your performance report, you've already got that list of projects and things that you're like, oh, we need to highlight that to demonstrate, you know, that we did achieve these things. And then you can kind of cross-reference these 2 documents with each other before you upload them. You know, I mentioned including those justifications in the notes section of the self-assessment. If you are capturing that information, like if there's a section about, you know, updating your, like there's the indicator, standard number 4 about strategy-driven programming, which is asking about updating your ETSs, making sure you're using market data. You could put all that information in your performance report. If they're, you know, if you're like, hey, we did a board retreat, we updated our strategies, we updated our work plan, we did this, we did that. You can just direct us from your self-assessment report. You can say performance report, annual board retreat. So then we know they've already represented this information in the performance report. We don't need to duplicate it. Okay, we're getting down to the wire here. 7 minutes left and I'm almost done. So for the program review and accreditation meeting, that's on Zoom. As I mentioned, we have already emailed you the Zoom meeting link for that. It is a 1-hour meeting. Our expectation is that your organization's staff and board and municipal partners will attend. We want to see at least 80% of your board in attendance. If it's 75%, don't sweat it. It's not, you know, it's not the end of the world. If it's 20%, then we're going to be a little concerned about why there's only 2 of the 10 people there. Additionally, you know, we don't need 10 people from your municipality, but it is helpful to have the people that you're working closest with, especially if you have a capital outlay project, so that we have that city representative there that we can address any issues or answer any questions related to that project at that time. So our focus in those meetings is not to necessarily talk about what you did in the last year, because that's all in your performance report. What we want to talk about is what you need help with in the next year, what your priorities are, what your goals are, and, you know, figure out what we can do to assist as we move forward. If there are specific topics or challenges that you want to address, then send me an email in advance and let me know, so we'll be kind of prepared to discuss those things in that space. And I've said it over and over again, but it is so important that we get those documents 1 week prior to the meeting. Because here's the process. As I said, I check your dashboard 2 weeks prior to the meeting. I send you a reminder. I check again 1 week out. I don't download any remaining documents that you've uploaded in that last week. I assemble them into a packet. I send it to Daniel and Lucas. We read through your work plan, your budget, your board roster, your performance report, your self-assessment, your partner survey. We read through all those things. We then have a meeting at the beginning of the week, and we talk about anything that stuck out to us that we think we need to address in your meeting, anything we want to highlight, opportunities for technical assistance, etc. So if we don't get your performance report, or if we don't get your self-assessment till the day before, you have eliminated our ability to really read through it, have a conversation. Like, we just kind of show up cold, and we do not have the ability to really, give you what you deserve, based on your work and what you've done. Additionally, while I'm also assembling all this stuff into packets, etc., I am also sending reminders and following up with the people who we're meeting with next week. So if I am still trying to track down important documents from you, then that is kind of jamming me up for the next week. And then this is why reports get pushed back so far, is because sometimes just getting all the documents from people can really, really be time consuming. So I am trying to encourage everybody to really kind of think about how it's like the butterfly effect. It's like one report doesn't get submitted, and then it's like everything else kind of like changes, from there on out. And as I mentioned before, the site visits that occur in person are more informal. It's an opportunity for Danielle and Lucas to get into your community and see how things are going. And that's kind of just scheduled, throughout the year. So if you have something specific you'd like them to come in and participate in or see, please do not hesitate to reach out and come and let them know what you have coming up that might be a good opportunity for them to come in and see. This is the document I sent out to all of you. It lists your meeting schedule. As I said, there's the Zoom meeting link. I made it a little tiny short one and was able to personalize them in the hopes that would make it easier for people to click on the right links. And then your partner survey link as well. So these are live links. It is a PDF. You can click on them and it'll open up, or you can copy and paste it into an email, whatever it is you need to do. I have already created Google Calendar meeting events for each of you. I have not sent the invitations yet because I was kind of waiting to see if anybody was going to request meeting date changes or time changes or anything like that. I only heard from one person in the last week. So if you need a change, please get it to me ASAP, because I want to get all this information to Jesse, because we're going to have this available at the Carlsbad meeting next month as well. The last thing here, oh my gosh, 2 minutes left. Hope you guys can stay on a few minutes more so I can answer those questions. Making sure you get those quarterly investment reports in. We are required to take that information and pass it along to MainStreet America and to the legislature. And when you don't report stuff to us, and then we have to report to the legislature and we are not meeting the goals that they have set for us, but we actually have, they just haven't been reported, that doesn't look great for us. And that can really impact the support that we have to continue our funding for the program as well as our capital outlay. So it is so important to get those stats into us. And additionally, completing that annual budget salary survey when that comes out in November, we are required to submit those to national as well. So these are not just things that we're just doing for the fun of it. There really are they are required from the state, and they're also required from national as well. So they're important. Also, when you're doing your performance report, remember, New Mexico MainStreet provides the service now of creating an impact report for your organization. Use this, don't duplicate efforts. Take this information that you're putting into this performance report and use it to put into your impact report, or use it in your reporting to your city government, or if you have to do an annual budget request. Please look at this as an opportunity to collect this information in one place and use it for a lot of different purposes. Okay. Jesse, what questions? Are there questions?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Amy. There's 2 questions. One is regarding ad hoc board members and conflict of interest, if you can advise on that. And the second question is, the annual report is based on the time span from when to when, from last year to this year, question mark?
So the performance report should be the 12 months prior to your accreditation meeting. So that's a good question. I did not mention that in this webinar. It is in the instructions though, just so you guys know, so you will see it elsewhere. But it should be the 12 months prior. So if your meeting is scheduled for October, it should be from the previous, what is it, October to September. So October 22 to September 23 should be what your report is based on. Ad hoc board members, I think if they are ex officio and they're not voting, I don't think you need to have those conflict of interest forms for them. But maybe I should double check with Eduardo and he might tell me I'm wrong. But in my experience, it's just been for the ones that are voting. I'm assuming that's what the question was getting at.
Okay, if there's any other questions, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Amy. I have a question. Back toward the beginning of the presentation, let's see, when you were talking about, I'm trying to read my notes to remember what my question was. When you were talking about the different compliance documents. So I think you mentioned like with the local government, and I'm not sure if I heard this correctly, but I think something like LOA contract.
So there were two things.
Okay.
There's the MOU or LOA, depending on what you guys are using.
Oh, okay.
That's just that agreement that we're all going to work together, New Mexico Main Street, local programs, local municipality. And that's the one that I think I would have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty positive we got them all through last year. So those are for 2 years. So that way you don't have to worry about. The other one is the service contract. And I think most of our organizations have an annual service contract. So, and most of them run from July to June. So we would expect that you would upload your current one for that one. I do know, and I don't know, I know you guys have a lot of different stuff that you guys have going on in Silver City. I know a few of our programs they don't do an annual contract, they do like a biannual contract, so it's every 2 years. I know a few, I don't remember if you guys still do this in Carlsbad, but I think some of them don't have a separate contract. It's just the MOU. So if you guys have something wonky like that, something kind of different, just remind me whenever you shoot me an email to let me know you've uploaded stuff, and then that way I'll just make a note in the comments there.
Okay, thank you. And I do have our signed service contract, and so the MOU is usually every other year, right? I think you just said. Okay, may have. I'm gonna have to go back and check all my things. Well, let's see. And then the MOU, does that have to get signed? Okay.
Yes, that gets signed by Daniel, your president, and the city manager or mayor, whoever.
Okay. So I was confused for a second, and I thought I might have accidentally done another MOU, even though we didn't need to, but what I did wasn't something that got signed. I think I just did like some supporting documents to go along with the signed service contract. Okay, so I think we're all good. Thanks for explaining. And then, because we operate with an MOU, then I don't need to do anything about an LOA document because we're doing the MOU instead. Okay, cool. All right, thanks for explaining.
Yeah,
sure. And then, and then I did want to just check in too about, so the council resolution of support, I didn't know we needed that, but presumably since we need it, our community has been compliant in the past, I'm guessing, and that when I reach out to the town, they'll probably know what I'm talking about. Does that sound right to you? Okay.
I would think so, or I would think that one might have been passed and maybe they just didn't provide that to you. So yeah, I think worth checking in on.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Amy. I think those are all my questions. I know I kept noting stuff down, but then for the most part, then you were answering them in your presentation. So thank you very much.
Good. You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay. Well, if you don't have anything else for me, we will make this recording available to you all. And oh my gosh, I'm looking in the chat and I'm seeing that Chantel's AI assistant was talking to me. That's just so funny. Wow, technology. Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and I appreciate your presence. And please let me know if you have any questions. Please do read through all the documents that were sent out last week. If you did not see them, please go look at them now and confirm that that date and time is going to work for you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks,
Bye.
bye.